So, John, I want to shift gears just a little bit and ask you a question, because I know many of the women have been through heartbreak, divorce, really difficult breakups, and are really afraid to open up their hearts or trust again. I just wonder if you could speak to that for a minute.
Well, yes, I can. Well, not that you have to be a statistic, okay, but without help, we'll say it this way, women statistically, after a painful breakup, will wait 9 years before becoming involved again. And men,
Wow.
It can be much sooner, 3 years at the latest. And often a big blow to your heart is when you've been with a man and you see him getting involved with somebody right away. Then you kind of feel like, what, I was nothing to him? Because you're feeling such a loss, why doesn't he feel such a loss? Well, the feeling part of the brain is twice as big in women. And under moderate stress, women have 8 times more blood flow to that emotional part of the brain. The right side of the brain, which has to do with loss and feelings and emotions, is always bigger in women compared to the left side, which is bigger in men. It's called the left anterior parietal lobe. It's bigger in men, which has to do with solving problems and interpersonal interactions. So when a relationship breaks up, it's a problem, and the solution to being alone is to find somebody. So that's how men deal with loss, is if you have a loss, then you have to solve the problem by doing something about it and finding someone else. But for women, the healing process is different, and it has to do with, you're with somebody, you love them. How can I trust that I could be with the right person because I thought this was the right person? So what women do is they internalize it and put it on themselves, and the questioning becomes, well, how can I trust myself to love again? And hopefully, by educating yourself in some of the common mistakes both men and women make in relationships, we can make sense of what happened. When you can make sense of what happened, then your trust levels can increase, which allows your oxytocin levels. Oxytocin is the hormone of trust. Oxytocin is that part of you that will bond with a man again. And so this is, a big a difference between men and women is there's a tendency, unless women get the support they need, they don't always move into another relationship. It's certainly possible. It's certainly available to you. The power is within you. It's finding that place again that's really open and ready for it. And we need help to get through those moments. Just like if you broke your arm, you wouldn't want to fix it all on your own. You want to get help to do it. Because often when we're alone, and we feel, not in relationships, we tend to attract other people who feel that way too, which reinforces what we're feeling, rather than people who can validate what we're feeling, but who've moved beyond that to find love in their life. That's such a key component to having mentors and people who inspire us with the truth, because it can happen. I see it happening all the time, particularly, one example is a woman came to me, and we just processed her feelings of her dad and some of her feelings of past relationships. But most importantly, she said, was just understanding men, just being able to interpret men correctly and giving herself permission to be feminine and realize that's what's most attractive in a relationship with a man. You don't have to prove to him how competent you are. You have to be loving, and that's what allows men to fall in love with you. And then a few weeks later, literally, she meets the love of her life. This is what happens again and again, is when people go through processes of coming back to feeling their authentic self, then love happens. There's a movie right now called Wild, and the woman that went into the wild and took this, she was just bottomed out in life, but she was in nature. And, and she basically felt when you're in nature all alone for weeks, you feel your need for life and love and nature and all that. Then 8 days later, she meets a guy and she's happily married and has a family. So connecting back to that need, that vulnerable place, is what it shifts your awareness to where you're able to see the right person for you, and they're able to see that you're the right person for them. So that's really, really a key thing. As the time passes and I see our time together is closing, I want to mention something about my most recent work, which has really taken me about 10 years to put together. Because while it's not a behavioral aspect, it's a biological aspect of being able to be ready for the right person for you. And that's to realize that today we tend to be highly stressed, and I talked about the reason for that is being more on the masculine side for women. But there's also an aspect of our diet and exercise and lifestyle choices, which I talk about in my book, Staying Focused in a Hyper World. And that is natural solutions, which is we need to understand that our high carbohydrate diet, for example, sugar, junk foods, addictions, and so forth, what they do is they overstimulate the brain and they create a kind of hyper state. For children, it looks like ADHD, but for grown women, it often looks like feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from their feminine energy. There's so much into the masculine energy of having to do, they're not able to reconnect back to the feminine. So if you find you're having difficulties sleeping, your mind is really, really racing and busy, there's lots of natural solutions that can support these behaviors that I've been talking about. In addition, there's behaviors to stimulate more oxytocin in your life, and I've written about that in many, many of my books. But basically, you've got to balance a life that's working hard with a life where you're enjoying yourself. That's what produces the oxytocin that attracts the right man. And major oxytocin producers are getting your hair done, getting massage, going for lunches and not talking about business, going for walks in nature, going shopping when you're not in a hurry, doing things that make you feel beautiful. These are all things, quote, girly things, not practical things to make money, but things that you enjoy doing when you're not rushed. Those are all oxytocin activities. And then there's actual supplements that will create more oxytocin, depending upon what your health challenges are. And I talk about that in my book. But the biggest supplement that I've found to create oxytocin is low-dose lithium orotate and minerals, but the most important is lithium. And lithium is misunderstood because it's prescribed by psychiatrists, by people with bipolar, mood swings, and so forth, in high doses, which are toxic. But low-dose lithium orotate is different from what's prescribed by doctors, and it's also in the healthy dose. So just taking that can help calm the brain from looping, because the brain will tend to loop when we're under stress and you worry more, or you fixate on problems rather than being happy and fulfilled and more loving. So this is only one of many of the important suggestions that I make in my new book, and it's important that we realize that we don't have to take drugs to change our state. We just need to do things that we enjoy doing and make sure we're getting the proper nutrition, and we can come back into balance.
Thank you, John, for mentioning that. And I just want to also let all of our listeners know that there's a wealth of information and resources that you and your lovely daughter Lauren put together on MarsVenus.com every day with John Gray and all kinds of wonderful resources. So there's so much that we could discuss here today, and I thank you so much for being so generous with your time and with your wisdom, and I'm sure you'll all want to continue to get more from John, so please do visit MarsVenus.com.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I will put in the mention that you'll get a lot more from my daughter Lauren's video blog. She puts them out every week, and they're actually better than what I do. It's like a step beyond, and she focuses particularly on women's needs as well. So I'll just put that plug in since I'm her dad.
Yeah,
really
you must be very proud.
I'm very proud. She's taken it to a whole nother level, because I could only really do it from the male perspective, even though I understand women quite well. But it was she being a woman. She says, "No, Dad, you got to say it like this." So she's improved on me quite a bit.
Thank you, John. And I'd just like to give you the opportunity before we close out, just to leave with maybe just one last parting thought.
Well, a parting thought is to know that if you make a few changes, and I think we've covered a lot of areas where you go, oh, I was doing that, and now I can make a change, that can give us hope in getting a better result. Because if we keep doing the same thing, we tend to get the same results. And by making a few changes, and most of those changes have to do with actually doing less and being yourself more. Working less hard and enjoying your life more becomes the fertile ground to attract the right person in your life and to allow that dream to come true of sharing your life with someone who loves you and someone that you can love. And we all deserve it. And I look forward to you having it as well.